Okay, so here I'm just going to do a little retread of some of my best NBA related takes of all time. So, like, one of the funny little observations I made, and this was a super long time ago on my old channel, so I probably was the first person to say it. In 2014, when the Spurs blew out the Heat, obviously in the finals in 5 games, guess who led the finals in assists per game, or total assists even? It was Boris Diaw. So you have a prime uninjured LeBron, right? He played every game. He had the little cramp moment, I guess, but ultimately, he played every game. He was healthy. He was playing well. But Boris Diaw literally out assisted a prime uninjured LeBron James, and this is your GOAT or this is your whatever. Not that I'm even saying it that sporadically, but just it's so stupid because imagine saying that. Even forget about LeBron, but like imagine Boris Diaw leading NBA Finals in assists, not Tony Parker or somebody like that, even Ginobili, right? Not Wade, not LeBron, but literally Boris Diaw led an NBA Finals in assists, featuring a prime uninjured LeBron James who played every game. It makes no sense, but that's what the Spurs sort of system type environment can do, is that anybody can shine, and he is a good passer, but that just seems like it sounds like a fake stat even when I say it. Then here was another good take about the bubble that I get that people like to hate on that championship, the Mickey Mouse ring supposedly by the Lakers, but I went into that kind of knowing at least somewhat how the bubble was going to work and knowing that everybody was going to play in it. So I predicted the Clippers would win the whole thing, right? And they didn't get hurt like they often always have done since. So I have no excuse there. So I predicted the Clippers would win knowing that it's in the bubble. And then they lose up 3-1 to Denver, which shocked me and a lot of people. So I have to admit that I was wrong. I can't say, oh, it's because of the bubble now all of a sudden. And so in that sense, I wouldn't discredit that ring at all. I would say it's equal to any other ring. Like, obviously, it's not the most impressive one, like where you're, a 6 seed as the Rockets winning in 95 or something crazy like that. 1975 Warriors as the underdogs sweeping the Bullets. It's not like one of the most impressive or something like that in terms of matchups and stuff. But it's a legitimate good ring, just like any other, because it's not just, oh, the Lakers were playing the bubble. It's that everybody was playing the bubble. So how did that benefit them specifically, right? It's one of those fallacies of an equalizing factor. Something that applies to everybody is used to discredit one person or, one group there. So, like, how can you say it discredits the Lakers winning? Then that means no matter who won, it would have been discredited. But I get the feeling. So if you feel that way, then okay, no matter who won, it would have been a Mickey Mouse ring, irrelevant. But since everybody's playing under the same circumstance, it's like the era's fallacy. People would say, oh, well, the Celtics only won 11 out of 13 years, right, with Bill Russell, because, oh, it was a weaker era. Of course, that's why. It's just a weak era. But what sense does that make? It wasn't just the Celtics who played in a weak era. Everybody, every other team was in that same weak era. So why were they not able to take advantage of it? Obviously, you have to give the Celtics credit. So it's a level playing field. Now make the best of it. So, that explains why maybe a team was able to win 11 out of 13, right? Because the rules and setup and obviously everything was different. But the fact that they were the one to do it is impressive because, again, plenty of other teams. Why didn't the Hawks win? They won the one with Bob Pettit. Wilt won a couple in there, but Wilt and Bob Pettit, the only two to actually beat the mighty Celtics in that 13-year span. And Bob Pettit had the 50 piece to close out the finals game 6. Wilt beat them in the same conference on the way to the finals, the one year he won before he went to the Lakers. Like, not obviously not the one he won with the Lakers. And then, yeah, it's an equalizing factor fallacy. So that one I actually kind of am shocked that people still keep saying that after so many years. Right, I kind of said this at the time, was again, either no matter who won, it would have been discredited. So if you picked the Bucks to win, it would have meant nothing. If you picked the Clippers to win, it would have meant nothing. So, okay, either it means nothing no matter who won, so let's just not even worry about it, or it would mean the same amount no matter who won because everybody's playing under the same circumstance. In fact, I'd even go further to, again, like, how does it discredit them winning? Because, oh, people don't like the Lakers or something. Uh, Again, I don't necessarily care one way or another. I don't have, like, a particular team I'm a fan of, but it's more like, how would that discredit them? But that means, again, no matter who won, then you could have said the same thing, right? It's not just them. So how does it make it easier for them? The one thing I even said was it arguably even makes it harder for them, Why? Because they were a higher seed. They were like the 1 seed or the 2 seed. I don't even remember. I think they might have been the 1 seed. And the point is that it would have made it harder for them, because think about like the Bucks in the East. They got upset despite being mostly not injured, right? They got upset in the first round by the Heat, or was it the second round? Okay, it's been a long time, so I forgot. But whatever, they got upset by an underdog team, right? And it must have been the second round because they were like the 5th seed Heat, right? And the point is that um they had home court advantage, but because it's a bubble, now it doesn't feel like home court. So that could help to explain why upsets like that happened and why a 5th seed and the Heat made the finals. Right. So on one hand, it hurts teams that had a higher seed because you don't feel that home court advantage as much, because there really is no home court advantage the same way that you would normally have. So it neutralizes the higher seed advantage. So the Lakers would have had that for the most part, and they didn't. So it arguably even made it harder for them, not easier. And again, to the extent that it would make it easier, it should make it easier for everybody equally. So that's kind of a fallacy. And on that topic of the Heat and them overachieving and making the 2 finals, this is a bit of a fallacy, because whether it be the sports commentators or just fans in general, they'll say, oh, look, the Heat failed to win a title and Jimmy Butler failed to win a title in those 2 runs, right? In the 2020 and obviously 23. I would consider it a net positive, because it's like, you didn't pick them, especially these analysts. They didn't pick them to make the finals that year at all, right? They didn't say that, oh, they're going to upset everybody and make the finals. But then when they make it and then lose, now you say, oh, it's a failure because they failed to win it. At no point did you expect them to win it, because you didn't even say that they should make it there. You pick against them in every round, kind of like the Pacers, right? Most recently, you pick against them every round and you say they have no business even being there. But then when they make it there, you don't give them credit. Like, wow, they overachieved to get here. You instead say, oh, it's a failure that they didn't win. It's kind of stupid. Like, even with the Mavs and Luka, right, in 2024, it's like, oh, it's a failure of Luka to not win the title against Boston, even though none of those people picked the Mavs to even make it there. So you should overachieve. What's another good one? The Luka special. I kind of coined, not that it's my phrase, but I kind of coined that as a phrase to mean that the Luka special is whenever a player outscores the entire other team, like in the first half, and blows them out. Like, they come out in the first quarter and they outscore the entire other team, which Luka did that against both the Timberwolves in that last game, and he did that against the Suns in the closeout game in both of those. Like, he just single-handedly basically outscores the entire team, the first quarter, the first half even, right, and just kind of takes over the game. Which led to me and my friend making that joke, like a joke quote by Magic Johnson, like, um, Luca, I played with Larry Bird. He was my friend. I knew Larry Bird, kind of like the you're no John Kennedy or no Jack Kennedy. Is like, Luca, I knew Larry Bird. He was my friend. I played against him. You're Luca. You're Larry Bird incarnate, basically, because that's the kind of thing he would do. Not just that he would put up good numbers or play well, but that he would do it in that kind of way. Like, you just come out in the first half and you just completely demoralize them, right? And that's kind of the deeper game within the game. It's he might only end with 30 points, but if they all came in the first half, you just start to blow them out, and they can't recover. So what else do we have? The era argument, which I've kind of gotten tired of even explaining this, but people are so dumb. Is like where people try to discredit players. Like, the easiest way to say it is like, Wilt, even later in his career, even injured a little bit, he had some knee issues, I think, some other problems here and there. So he took a lesser role with the Lakers. So he had been through some injuries. He was older. He wasn't at the peak of his prime. He was deliberately taking a back seat too, just choosing to play kind of more defense and rebounding and not trying to score as much. Even that Wilt, who still won a Finals MVP when they won with the Lakers, not Jerry West. Right, Jerry West won when they lost one, and that was before Wilt was even there. But that was the first year they gave out the award, so that would actually explain why. It's not that, oh, even though he had a great performance in the losing team, that's actually not why he won it. It just became tradition after that to give it to somebody on the winning team, not the best player overall. So, obviously, it was the first year that they gave the award overall, so the tradition hadn't been established, and he had such an exceptional finals that's kind of why, more so than anything else. The 2015 finals, you could say, it was a bit of a salty thing, like, oh, people wanted LeBron to win it, so they gave it to Iguodala, which is dumb. Like, if you want to give it to the best player on the winning team, then give it to Steph, who put up. Oh yeah, there's a few of these statistical analyses I have too. I could show. Hang on. Either give it to the best player on the winning team, Steph, or the best player on the losing team, best player overall. LeBron is fine, but instead they give it to Iguodala just to sort of spite Steph or stick up for LeBron, but it's dumb. So it's more so just the tradition's been established. And yeah, like compare. I guess I won't show it, but maybe in editing I could do it later. Isaiah Thomas's career numbers versus Kevin Johnson's career numbers. Guess whose are whose, even in the playoffs to some extent. So Isaiah gets a little overrated because he played with one of the best defensive teams of all time, multiple Hall of Famers. Bill Laimbeer deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Mark Aguirre deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. um, Dennis Rodman is in the Hall of Fame. Joe Dumars Hall of Famer. So like he had a bit of a stacked team. So people try to put him in the thing with like, oh, he's like Bird, he's like Magic, but he had a stacked team just like they did. It just kind of looked different, or it was more defensive. So what else do we have? But yeah, the overachieving gets punished there a little bit. The era argument. Oh yeah, Wilt even later in his career playing the lesser role through some injuries against a prime Kareem, right? He would still play pretty well, and it wouldn't be like, oh, Kareem's a great defender, obviously in his prime, against a Wilt who's past his prime. He still held his own and played pretty well most of the time. So what that means is like, who are you telling me is going to stop Wilt today? Like, if you want to say you would just lose games because 3 is bigger than 2, that kind of thing, that's fine. But to say that he wouldn't be effective, or Rudy Gobert is going to shut down Wilt, or like who is going to do it? So whenever you make these era arguments, they make no sense, because who you play against has very little to do with how good you actually are, right? It has to do with maybe whether you win or not. Like if the competition is good that way, I can understand that. So you might not win, like, facing a team that won 11 championships in 13 years. On one hand, you'll say that, oh, the era was weak. On the other hand, it was impossible to win because one team was, monopolizing. So if that happened in the modern era, what would you be saying? You'd be crying like, these LeBron fans, oh, the Warriors were too stacked. They won 4 championships in the span. Like, oh, wow, like that's the end of the world. When did he ever face or beat a team that won 11 in 13 years, right? When did that ever happen? So it's kind of a reversal. But yeah, the era thing makes no sense. He could hold his own against a prime Kareem, even later in his career. Like, who is going to be stopping him? Who you play against doesn't determine how good you are either. Especially, again, in the defensive sense, like, you're saying, who did Jordan play every night that makes him the GOAT? Like, oh, Danny Ainge is guarding him sometimes, or Byron Russell is guarding him, or all these kind of average, Dan Marley at times. Like, who are the you're not going against Gary Payton every night, right? There's Gary Payton, there's Sidney Moncrief. They might have given him a little trouble, but he's still great. He's going to put up great numbers regardless. Like, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of dumb to use that. Like, no, you're not going against a defensive all-time great every night, because there aren't that many great defenders, period, in the league at a time. Like LeBron, who is he going against a great defender every night throughout his career? You have Kawhi one night, you have Iguodala one night, you have a couple others, right? But most nights it's not going to be that big of a deal. So and even against those great defenders, they don't shut you down, right? They just make it a little tougher, a little lower field goal percentage maybe. This brings me back to one of my quotes here, and then I'll do one more topic. But one of my quotes is comparing like the 2007 finals LeBron stats to Jordan's against the Celtics. They both got swept, even though Jordan Celtics in the first round, but they ended up winning the title. So it's like Jordan gets swept by the eventual champion that year, the Celtics, and LeBron gets swept by the eventual champion, obviously, in that very round, the Spurs in 2007. But what's the difference in that comparison? And they're both pretty young, early in their careers at that point. The difference is Jordan averages like 43 a game on 50% shooting, right? Even though he lost, so he still played great. LeBron averaged like 22 on like less than 40% shooting, I'm pretty sure. So again, they both get swept. They both lost to a better team. We can accept that. But to me, it's like facing a better team is an excuse for losing, but not for playing badly. If you're great, you should still play great. But then if you lose, we can understand. It shouldn't be that, oh, you played a better team, therefore that's why you played badly, right? That's the difference. You should find a way to still be effective, put up numbers, be just, and he's done that in a lot of series since then, right? Even when he loses to the Warriors, he still put up like 51 in the first game in 2017 and stuff. Yeah, the final point is on the Warriors situation, like how Curry was always the real MVP. He sort of, built the whole franchise up. That Durant doesn't, nobody really deserved the MVPs over him in a literal sense, statistical sense, sure. But like, he's the anti-Westbrook. He took a step back for Durant. He kind of babied him and coddled him and didn't care and didn't have an ego. So we can't punish a guy for doing that. And so you create a situation where, he's clearly the best. He's clearly just doesn't care about all that. Durant has to prove that he can win without him, not the other way around. Just that the league owes Curry like a 4-point line before he retires, because that's basically how he's made the game shift anyway. And you might oppose that, but then if you oppose that, you should oppose the current state of the league anyway, where they shoot so many threes. That's kind of and deep threes at that. So they're already kind of shooting fours. You're just not getting four for them. So that's almost a tribute. They should do that because that's the way the league's trended anyway. And it's like, as much as people make fun of the WNBA or finesse kind of game, that's kind of what the NBA is more like now than ever before. So if you do dislike that, then why would you like the current state? Yeah, he sort of coddled Durant a bit, so there's no doubt in my mind. Like, again, we kill Westbrook for being selfish and not making it work. Then somebody does make it work, and then we try to diminish them. Like, I see through that. Like, Curry's gravity and his whole thing is so great. So, and give the Warriors organization credit. Like, people will criticize them like, oh, that kind of ruined the league, but it's actually kind of the opposite. You're all trying to make the best team as possible, and they made one of the best teams of all time by doing what? They drafted and developed their 3 core players. Obviously, Steph coming into the league wasn't as good as he ended up becoming, so they drafted him, they developed him into being even better than what he was. Clay, same thing, drafted him, developed him into being better than he was. He didn't come in the league and was immediately great. So both of those, like, you're drafting, you're developing. Draymond, you drafted him, and I wouldn't say he improved that much because he's never impressed me that much, but he's still. So you did that. So I could put this challenge to any team. Like, I would personally give you and pay the salary of a Kevin Durant for you, right, in their prime, equivalent player, if you just do the following: draft and develop your 3 best players and make a team that can win 73 games in the regular season and win a title the year before, while still having the cap space in the room for a player of Kevin Durant's caliber. Like, show me the example of do that part, and then I'll give you that player for free. But that's the thing. You know how impossible that is, so you're not giving them enough credit for building properly that way. And then speaking of Draymond being overrated, it's like the fact that the other statistical thing was I was showing Curry's Finals MVP stats in 2015 versus when he didn't win the MVP versus like Kobe from 2009, or no, it must have been 2010, where they're almost identical stat lines. So for Kobe, it's like, oh, he's so clutch, he's this, he's that. For Curry, we don't even give him the MVP. And Curry's also somebody who has his own like defensive rules, like the Curry rules instead of the Jordan rules, where he gets hand checked at half court, off ball, and all these kind of things that you can't get away with doing on anybody else. But yeah, let's diminish Draymond a bit, how he's kind of sabotaged the whole Warriors dynasty. He pisses off KD, they get in the fight. That's part of the reason why he leaves. He gets suspended in 2016 in a key game and causes them to lose in part, even though he had a great game 7 to try to make up for it. It shouldn't have gotten to that point. Then he was never even the 3rd best player on a championship team, because in 2015, think about it. In 2015, when they won, it was obviously Steph and Clay, and then Iguodala stepped up. So now it's no longer Draymond. Then 2016, he might have very well been the best player, but they didn't win. Like, he might have almost won the MVP based on the Game 7 performance, but he got suspended for the one game. Then 2017, 2018, now the new big 3, comes in that, oh, it's Steph, KD, and Clay, and now Draymond gets pushed back, so he's still not the third best player on a championship team. And then 2022, same thing. Now instead of it's Steph, Clay, but instead of Draymond being the third best player, it's somewhere between Wiggins and Poole that they collectively combined to almost fill the space of Kevin Durant. And so individually, either one of them could have been better than him. So he was never actually even the third best player. So it gets sort of overrated a bit for sure. And what else? I think I had one. Oh yeah, the statistical things. Yeah, compare Isaiah Thomas's stats to Kevin Johnson's. Compare the Kobe 2010 Finals MVP to Curry in 2015, and then finally compare John Stockton's average season to Steve Nash's MVP season. And remember, it's not like Nash was a great defender, so the MVP numbers that Nash put up in both of those years were like an average year for Stockton in a lower scoring era, in a less offensive minded era without Mike D'Antoni as a coach, right? With that emphasis. So it's like that makes it all more impressive for Stockton that in a slower era, slower pace, lower scoring, more defensive, in an era where you weren't shooting as many threes, without the offensive emphasis like Mike D'Antoni, he still put up those kind of numbers every single year. That would be an average or even a down year for Stockton. But yet he didn't win an MVP ever for any of those. Whereas Nash wins two. For again, he's averaging like 15 and something 10, 12 assists, but like that is so dumb. So a Nash MVP season is like a regular Stockton season. And again, Stockton's better on defense, more steals. Nash wasn't a good defender. He's also, you know, he's also very efficient, just like Nash is. He also got more assists than him, right? Like, and he had those kind of years every single year. So for him, it's just a normal year. So in that sense, the Nash MVPs are definitely overrated. All right, let me do a few more fallacies here since I'm on the topic. Like something to do with Jordan, and this isn't like any sort of hate or diminishing him or not even saying that he's possibly the greatest, but I keep it more open-minded, open-ended. Certainly Wilt doesn't get enough credit. Centers in general don't get enough credit. Right? You hear this like list of top 3 players, which is Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe. You hear that a lot being talked about. Even in some of these lineup hypotheticals, they'll have like Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe in the same lineup, which makes no sense because even Kobe and Jordan themselves would tell you they wouldn't want that, right? You have two players of the same position that play exactly the same way. It makes no sense. You wouldn't want one to be a sixth man, assuming that you were choosing from other all-time greats. It's like one of these teams where you just want to put big names together and just make talent together, but that doesn't work. It's about the fit. It's about, different styles of play mixing together. You can't just do that. You would never, ever want that. So maybe there's some, again, rest in peace, but like sort of posthumous glaze that's happening where it's just weird. A lot of people had him in the bottom 5. Like he's top 10 all time, but he's like bottom 5, or some people even had him 10 to 15. Even some of these sites, analysts, whatever. So he was around like the 5 to 10 range, which is kind of where I would have him too. But instead, it's gone from that to now he's like top 3 all of a sudden. Like I hate to say that's the reason why, but that shouldn't change anything, right? Of how great he was, it's still the same thing. So we see this sort of reversal a little bit, which is unfortunate that that's the reason. But because like he's not better than Jordan, who's just the same position as him, and just even by his own admission, better, more efficient. Pretty much the only thing he did better than Jordan was shoot threes, but he just shot more of them more so. So he's not better than that. The player he based himself off of, right? Even by his own admission, would make sense. He's not better than Wilt. He's not better than Kareem, all-time leading scorer, despite Kobe's excellent longevity. Obviously, Wilt's peak was better and better than anybody. Um, Not better than LeBron now, certainly, with both the longevity and twice as many Finals MVPs and all these different things. And then he's not better than Hakeem Olajuwon, either two-way player, also great. Although that's when it starts to get close, right? If you want to put them close in there, they're both great two-way players, right? Both two-time Finals MVP. Like that's why he's close. But because Hakeem's defense was so impactful, I would go with that. So then, if you want to put him anywhere after that, is he better than Bird and Magic because of his defense? Probably. You might have to say that. Is he better than Shaq? I would say no, but again, you could certainly discuss a 5 to 10, but that seems fair. Yeah, let's debunk some Jordan related fallacies. Like, um, Like the Bulls organization doesn't get enough credit because again, there's a lot of bad mouthing and back and forth. But to win 6 titles isn't that easy, and Jordan should know now in hindsight that he's been an owner of a team too. Like it's not that easy. He kept asking for certain stupid players, like people from Carolina because that's where he was from and stuff when he was playing for the Bulls. So the Bulls actually did a great job and made that work. And it's not as simple as you think. They drafted Pippen, developed him. They got, the trade, some of the other players. So like Kukoc and Rodman and stuff over time. So it's not as easy as you think. So actually they do deserve credit because you might think, it's just because of Jordan, but then you weren't going to win every year. So they did a better job of building than you might think. And then there's a fallacy like, they would have won 8 straight if he didn't retire, which on one hand, it's then his choice and his fault that he retired. So I'm not going to use that as a benefit to him. Like, but they would have won 8. Well, they didn't. So it doesn't matter. But so many things could have happened, right? You could have just had an off year. Maybe that would have been a bad year. And then we'd all remember that, like, that's the year that they choked or whatever. Or somebody could have gotten injured. There's a lot of burnout, wear and tear, right? Even if one major player, Pippen, goes down, you end up not winning. There's a lot of things that could have happened, so it's impossible to say you would have just won 8 straight, right? That's oversimplified. Injuries happen, fatigue, burnout, whatever. So that break in a way kind of helps. So it's not good to use it as an excuse, like, okay, you get a year and a half off, whatever, but now you want to pretend like, we want to also pretend like it's a positive too. Like, no, you took the time off, so you miss out on all that, but then you get the benefit of being better rested and so forth. And then they did actually come back and lose. And you might think, that's just because he was rusty or whatever, because he's coming back. But that's actually not true. Because then the next year they got Rodman, another Hall of Fame player. So, like, that's actually the real reason. It wasn't like, he's rusty. It was that, they got another great player. Right. And now they're able to win. So, right. Not only would they not have won 8 straight, but like they actually lost. Jordan lost in his prime with a really good team to the Magic and turns the ball over to Nick Anderson the one time. And then here's another fallacy that went around for a long time on all these sports talk shows that, again, these are just sort of unnecessary. He can be all-time great, but you don't need to just lie. Like when they say, he never allowed a finals to get to a game 7, but yet this is what I always debunk. Like, he allowed, though, other series to get to a game 7, and even those same years on the way to those finals that he supposedly didn't allow to get to a game 7, like it's up to him, he allowed the conference finals to get to a game 7 or earlier rounds. Like, again, one of the years that he won the title, he went to game 7 against the Knicks. One of the years he went to game 7 against the Pacers. Like, those teams were inferior, arguably, to the teams that he's facing in the finals. Or even if they're not, the point is that statement that, he never allowed a game 7 in the finals. That's so stupid because, again, then why would he allow it in the conference finals or the previous rounds, those very same years that he's winning the title? So it's obviously not up to him. It's obviously not that simple, right? So that's where you just glorify it too much. No, it doesn't matter. If you win, you win. It's fine. But don't act like, he never allowed. Like, they're getting blown out in game 6 against Portland, and then he goes on the bench and they come back without him, and then they end up winning. So, like, he was about to allow a game 7 there. Phil Jackson was getting mad and puts him on the bench. So what else do we have? The moment like in 2004 where Larry Brown proves he's a better coach than Phil Jackson because with a collection of good talent but not the greatest talent of all time kind of players, the Pistons, he's able to not just beat but destroy Phil Jackson. So kind of switch their roles. Would Phil Jackson be able to beat Larry Brown if Larry Brown had a prime 2 of the top 10 players all time in their prime together, Kobe, Shaq? You can blame the drama and stuff, but that's part of a coach's job to manage that and the egos. And part of the problem there too is saying like, well, that drama and the hatred will be used as an excuse now once they lost in 2004, but it didn't stop them from making the finals that year, right? Like, you made it to the finals despite your drama, but then now you lose and then you act like, it's because of the drama that we couldn't do it. So what other Jordan fallacies? Like, just, the whole clutch idea is sometimes a fallacy that, that, you hit all these shots late, but like, why didn't you hit a couple more shots in the third quarter? Then you wouldn't have needed them because you'd be blowing them out. So like, are you trying to tell me he's not trying to make those shots that he's taking all game? Like, So that sense is kind of dumb. Like, just it's a statistical thing. Just you're trying to make every shot, so who cares when it is? And then there's a fallacy of like Wade as the third best shooting guard of all time, even though Sam Jones doesn't get enough credit as the all-time leading scorer for the greatest dynasty in sports history. That's one of my long-winded phrases from back in the day. And then you also have the ability to I just have so many of these great phrases, but I don't it's not even that I really want credit for them, but I've just said them and then I see them in comments and stuff over the years. Like, these are my fucking phrases. What other Jordan fallacies? But oh yeah, just the media hype around those three players. The Jordan, Kobe, LeBron is like, what do they have in common? They're all ball handlers. They're all sort of guards slash forward. Mainly, they play more like guards, where they're handling the ball and all this. So it shows you they're media hype, media darling, fan favorites who have a style of play that people find entertaining. They're ball handlers. They're very, athletic, very flashy, very showy. That's what they have in common. Not that they're actually the three best players, or like, oh, centers aren't sexy like Hakeem or Wilt or Kareem, but that's what they have in common. So it has nothing to do with them actually being the three best or not. It only has to do with them. Oh, the media loves them. The media hypes them up. Again, entertaining style of play, fan favorites. That's really why those three are elevated there, and you just completely ignore every other position. Clearly, it's like a preference for a style of play.